Hi, I'm Michelle Silcox and I'm here to interview Madhuri about self-healing. So Madhuri, if you'd like to say a bit about yourself.
My name is Madhuri, and I'm an ancient meditator since 1973, when I took sannyas in Mumbai with Osho. And over all of these years, I have done a lot of kinds of meditation and therapies and so on, and eventually I was working in the mystery school, in the Osho School of Mysticism, and I was teaching intuitive opening. When I was 16, I discovered that I was a kind of natural psychic, but I didn't really do anything in the world with it until 1986, when I suddenly found myself out of the commune and in the world, and I began to do chakra readings, and went so brilliantly well that I ended up in this kind of career of that for a long, long time. And many, many methods began to inform my work, but eventually, after all kinds of adventures and difficulties and things, I ended up in Missouri with this sense that I was very isolated and I couldn't get deep enough inside myself. And I wanted to get deeper, and I didn't know how. I was still working with other people, but only when someone would sit down with me and guide me down in to a greater depth could I find the depth I wanted, and that didn't feel right. And that was in about 2009 that I felt I had to do something about that. And I ended up going to Scotland to visit a friend of mine, Lena, who's a biodynamic cranio practitioner, and I had 2 weeks of 3-hour sessions, and in those sessions I did break through into the place where I could be very, very deep and also not do, because that's the one thing Osho got cross at me about again and again and again, was that I was constantly meddling when I would go in the inner world. I didn't know how not to meddle. And so I also couldn't understand the value of not meddling because I hadn't been there, except maybe very, very, very briefly now and then. That discovery then led to a kind of exploration over the next couple of years in which I began to really spend a lot of time inside. Someone once asked Osho, if you could put all of your teachings into one word, what would that word be? He said, in. And I really began to discover that, to play with that more and more and more. And of course I'd done a lot of sitting meditation, I'd done a lot of wild active meditations, which I just love, dynamic and kundalini and chakra breathing and all kinds of things. And it was all really, really good. But to just go down in there and spend hours navigating, this was amazing. And in all of that, I gradually found myself developing a process, a very discrete process, very distinct. And I found that the unconscious loves to feel safe when it is going to go down in and face something scary, when the unconscious is going to be revealed, when it's going to face itself. It needs a framework. Otherwise the chaos is just too much and it will freak and just shrink. So this process to me so far has been infallible. It gets me where I need to go every time. And that's for all kinds of dis-eases, like if I just feel a little bit upset because I got an email that bothered me, that about something or other, and I feel a little like this, That's one thing that tells me, oh my God, I have to go in. Or it could be that someone dies that I love. And you have to go in then. You know, there's nothing else you can do. And I can take this process there with me to go down and help me face whatever is going on. And I can also use it to help me go with the person a ways on their way. It works for, well, for example, once I was in Holland, I had to take a long train journey the next day, but I was getting the flu. So I lay down, I did this method. I don't know how long it took, I don't know, an hour and a half, but in that time it was as if I faced 3 days worth of flu, all encapsulated. And I came out of it and I was fine, and I took the train journey next day and I was fine. It works with strange things that come up in a relationship where you end up in a situation where you otherwise might start blaming and getting pissed off at the other person, and we know where that goes.
Yeah.
You know? We know it just doesn't work, you know, it's like, it simply doesn't work. And we old warriors know that very well. So I found if I first go in and I take responsibility in that way, and I go where it's needed for me to go, and I don't know where that is before I go down in. I don't know anything before I go down in. All I know is I have these steps, but I don't know where they're going to take me. So every meditation is an incredible adventure. It's very exciting, you know. And every one I know that I am going to meet dogs with eyes as big as saucers and dogs with eyes as big as dinner plates down there. And I'm going to stand firm and I'm going to face them. And particularly that means observing sensations in my body rather than subscribing to the stories that my mind gives. It means precise, objective observation. So for me, this method has in it many elements of meditation that hadn't really all come together for me before. And in this, for me, they've all come together. Stillness, very precise observation, also a passionate whole body aliveness. Because when I'm down in there, I'm not going to sleep. I'm like as awake as I can possibly be. Just to see all the little things that had escaped my notice all my life. For example, there's something I call tacit atmospheres. When we were children, we lived in some kind of a dwelling with people. And those people were those things called grown-ups. So they'd had a lot of time to accumulate material around themselves. And that exuded a certain atmosphere, you know, which like a smell, I think it's actually particulate, you know, it's like, it's stuff. But as children, we were completely vulnerable to it. We were cloaked in it. And we therefore didn't really have a lot of chance to be objective, to be aware of it, because it was so assumed on our bodies, on our emotional beings. In this method, I found it possible to sit very still and observe an atmosphere, and thus to realize that it's not me, to disidentify with it without trying. Because we identify with what we're given as children, and then later we have to disidentify so that we find our freedom. In this method, I've been able to do that in a way that is very, very fine and very, very precise. And every time such a thing occurs where I get to finally observe a thing from a distance that I had simply been cloaked in before, there comes a rush of a kind of self-affirmation. You're like, wow, wow, you know, I managed to see that. You know, this is really, really cool. This thing that's been right under my nose all my life, I managed to see that. It's just so amazing. One of the elements that comes to me most often when I think of this method, really maybe it's the most basic thing, it's about loving myself. Now that's something people talk about, but what does it really mean?
Yes.
So what it means for me is, if I'm upset, I go lie down. I don't go rushing after some distraction. I don't get on Facebook. I don't eat something. Because it's churning in there and I know I have to face this. There isn't any other way. So that's the first step of self-love. I'm going to pay attention. So I go lie down. And then the next thing is I'm just being there. First I make myself very comfortable. That's the second part of self-love. I'm really comfortable. I put a rolled towel under my neck. I prop my elbows on pillows so that my arms don't get tired. I put a kind of scarf over my eyes. I get exactly the right warmth with just exactly the right number of blankets. Nothing heavy pressing anywhere. You know, everything just right. If I'm wearing a bra, I take it off. You know, like, just so that I can feel very, very easy. Then I put my hands on wherever I feel the disturbance. Sometimes it'll be my solar plexus. Very often it'll be my heart. If it's something in my body that hurts, you know, I had a jaw infection. Prop my elbows on pillows, put the hands on the jaw. If it's my knee, put my hands on the knee. And then there's a little time where I'm doing nothing. I'm just lying there with my hands on. The hands are completely passive. Very important. I'm not going to be doing anything. I'm going to be employing questions, but it's almost like those questions have a life of their own. The questions act as a shovel to take me deeper, but the questions have their own life. I don't have to put energy in them. They have their own energy. So I've, you know, assigned those questions over there to do that work, and then I completely just let go. When I'm lying there, first of all, my mind is hopping around, because that's what minds do. And I am not bothering about it. I am not bothering my mind and saying, don't hop around. See? Just the way it is just right. Here's my body just the way it is, and there's my mind just the way it is. And it will sort through things and talk about whatever it wants to talk about. You know, it might talk about what it wants me to wear tomorrow. Anything. It could talk about what it wants me to eat later. You know, it might mutter over some conversation I had yesterday. No problem. This is self-love. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
And this always delivers me into a feeling of happiness. Like, I'm just here. And then my hands are on. And this is also really feeling like love, because these hands are mine. And they're not doing anything. Long ago, I was a kind of, I did sort of psychic surgery. And I would kind of do things in energies. And it made me sick eventually to do that. So I don't do that anymore. In fact, it made me so sick that I almost died, and I had to have a very long recovery in which I found out how to take care of me. So taking care of the healer, first and foremost, always. So these hands-on and the not doing anything is sublime. So I'm wearing pink today because it feels like that. It's like I'm just here, and this is just what it is. And whatever I meet here is going to be just what it is. And after I feel a certain settling, and I feel ready, I'll start with the questions. And there are 10 of the questions. And the first questions just kind of ground me in being where I am. So the first question is, show me a safe place in my body. And then I just trust whatever comes. So that's one of the elements in this practice, is trusting whatever arises. And whatever it is, it might be my big toe. Very often it is my big toe. Or I might see a strong trunk of a pine tree up through me. I've worked with people where what felt safe to them was something that was actually in their aura rather than in their body. That's fine. Whatever it is, we trust it. And whatever that safe place is, we know that if anything gets too scary later on in the session, we can go back there to where it felt safe. The next question I ask myself is, show me the core of health. Now this is a very beautiful thing. I got this from the biodynamic cranial. The premise for it is that there is always a core of health in everybody. If it wasn't there, we would be dead. It's always healthy in there somewhere. It's always immaculately healthy in there somewhere. So I ask, and then I get a kind of feeling picture. I kind of see things and feel them at the same time. There was quite a while in which I would see my skeleton made of emeralds.
Wow.
Other times it might be just some light shining out of the upper body and more out of the toes and not quite so much in the middle. Or whatever it is, I just let it be that way. But it's always reassuring. You know, it's like, oh wow, okay, I'm not dead yet. Like when I had that jaw infection, I was really frightened. I had to take antibiotics. It was like bad, you know, it was, and I was really scared, and I was all by myself. But I would ask this question, because I spent a lot of time then in bed just going inside, and I would ask that question, show me the core of health. And I would see my skeleton was made of light and diamonds and things. I'm very much alive, you know, it's just fine. So you ground in that health before you move on. And then once that's established, you're ready to start descending into the place. Then again, usually I go back to whatever it is that's bothering me. And one of the things that's very refreshing here is to really give it space to be all the bothering that it is. Mm. You know, a lot of times in life we're just trying to distract ourselves when something doesn't feel good. Mm. Yeah. And in this case now, I'm not going to distract myself. I'm going to give it all the space it wants to be difficult, impossible, unhappy. And you know, I've actually even done this method just to try it out when I was very happy, to see what that was like, to put my hands on where my happiness was and go through the questions. And that was amazing. Osho said, when you bring awareness to something, if that thing vanishes, it was unreal. If it gets deeper, it was real. Mm. So the happiness got more in that case. If you bring awareness to an unease, a dis-ease, eventually it gives itself up. You know, it's like a thing I've noticed about despots in my time here on this earth. If you look at them long enough, they always cut their own throats some way or other. Yeah. You know, it always happens. And it's like that for the despots of the inner world. You just have to train your eye on them. You just have to observe and give them space. In your inner world, even though many times you will feel that something's very dangerous, and that's the way the mind controls us. It tells us it's too dangerous to go here. and then we avoid. But if we stand firm and we face it, and that's called being a warrior, we just observe. It pops the cork. And we can't go in with that intention, because that intention, that ambition, takes energy away from the awareness and makes it into an avoidance, actually. Mm. So we have to go in with full facing. It is like this, and I'm here with it. I'm not going anywhere. And even if the rest of my life I'm consumed with this particular uncomfortable sensation, I'm not going to move. And that is what the mind will say. When you come to a point where it's really uncomfortable and it's something that you've always run away from, the mind will say, you're going to die. If you face this, you will die. You know, this is really dangerous. Don't do this. This is really bad. And we are so used to skittering away. We don't even know we're doing it. You know, and when you get down in there, you can get very, very still. And even so, such a moment comes, and you'll try to skitter away. There's a never-ending fount of opportunities to face when you go in. When you don't skitter away, and that death moment comes, oh my God, I'm going to fucking die here, and you stand still. You just be there. You're doing nothing. Your hands are on. You're very deep. You're just breathing slowly. You're going nowhere. What often happens to me is that grip of that very nasty, uncomfortable sensation. It will get completely hold of me, like a dog has got me in its mouth, you know? It shakes me all over, and I might just shake. The whole body will shake, you know? Maybe my mouth will come open, and I'm still lying there blindfolded, and yet my body is moving, and it leaves by itself. It just goes out the top of my head, out my mouth, out my teeth. And then I fall back down, and in its place, there's light, there's emptiness. And I've watched it all the way. So I didn't miss something there that I would then have to repeat. So it gets to really go on its journey without me. And I'm ready for the next step. So we go down through the steps, and we don't go to the next step until we've completed the step that we're on. We've faced everything we can in that step. I've had such a session take me anywhere from 22 minutes, that would be a very unusual short one, to 3 hours, 3.5 hours. This is part of loving ourselves, that we step out of the time calendar and clock that we're given in the world. We all have to be able to do that sometime, you know. And as the clock speeds up, which it seems to be doing, the internet really speeded the clock up massively. By shrinking distance, it shrank time. So we all feel more time. Time is gotten in tinier and tinier bits. So to take ourselves out of it is necessary for our sanity and our self-love. And of course, going for a walk in the woods is like number one for that. Lying down and going inside and having no ticking clock in the room. I take my clock out, you know, I put it somewhere else. No time that I have to be somewhere. That's a freeing into inner space, outer space, eternity, and all that. You know, I'm going to just go down in and be here with this.
So many people need that, don't they?
Yeah. I'm feeling more relaxed now as I'm talking about this. And really, why I wanted to talk about this is because to me it feels like a huge gift of love that lies inside me. And I want to share it because it's just beautiful and helpful and delicious and so many other good things. I have done this work with other people quite a lot, and it is amazing. I mean, everyone's different. So other people might find a different way to go through this, and I know there are a lot of people on this earth for whom steps don't work. They're just not wired for steps. I know a man, a beautiful, very, very, very gifted healer who had a cancer. And Osho said to him, you can't have a tumor where you are relaxed. So every night he just lay in bed and put his hands on where the tumor was and went down in and relaxed. And he didn't do it with these steps particularly, but it was the same thing. And it healed. He cured it without having to do all kinds of obnoxious medicines. I shared with him about my method, and he really encouraged me to teach it to people. For me, in my wiring, there's a certain amount of a strategic quality, so I love steps, I love frameworks. For me, a framework gives me the necessary space to face something altogether. If it's too amorphous and chaotic, it's not so easy, especially something very challenging, to really face it, for me. So I love to have these steps. It's kind of like lines of a poem, It's just, and it's also like stair steps, as I said. It's like going deep, and I would like to submit that depth, like subtlety, is delight. If we can't go deep, we're missing most of our life, because the depth is... There are various levels of reality in our depths. There's the subconscious, the unconscious. I could call the super unconscious, the super conscious. There are all these layers, and each has its rewards. If the deeper we go, the more the awe. The more the rapt awe. My God, here I am. I find myself here in this body with this opportunity on this earth. It's so extraordinary. Like, wow, this is just amazing. Another thing that has struck me about this so many times is that when I go down in and I face a thing that I've missed all my life, a thing that's been controlling me all my life, and I finally see it, and it's something very small, very subtle, a very fine little nuance, and yet it has been completely controlling me. The degree of alertness it takes to apprehend that and do nothing. I'm always impressed. It's like, wow, this is intelligence. Intelligence is not about memorizing and intellect, and it's about being present to something that you otherwise would miss and seeing it. When I come out of this, I'm happy. I'm happy. And when I'm going in, I'm not demanding that I'm going to have to solve this thing right now. Not at all. It's like, it might take my whole life to solve this thing. Maybe I'll never solve this thing. But I'm going to go in there. I'm going to be with it, because it's calling me. That's self-love. Another thing about self-love is that when I go in there, I find me. Now, what is a me? Well, as I see it, we are all the sea of awareness. We are all this vastness. We are all of it. We are all this interconnected body that is everything. And yet, strangely, on another level, we've been assigned a certain apparent corporeal form, which is not that formful. It's a field, it's a vibrational field, and yet we've been assigned responsibility for it. We have. Well, we can't avoid that. We have to be alert to it. We are responsible for what it does in this strange world in which we live. And we're responsible for everything that goes on within its perception, actually. We're responsible for being aware of it. Not for doing, not for behavior so much as, although that's another level of it, that yes, it's good if we are responsible for that in another way, but that's just one of the levels of responsibility. The deeper level is to be aware of what's going on underneath, because that's where the behavior arises from. So self-love, when I go down in here, I very often discover or rediscover or newly discover attributes of my particular wiring in this corporeal form. What I'm made of, made for. My proclivities, my gifts. My gifts. Letting go of what's not my gift and affirming what is my gift. Letting go of what my parents tried to give me or helplessly gave me, and finding what this person got born for. So important, because that's where we have our fun. That's where we love our lives, is when we're doing what we love and what suits us. So I find that again and again. Yeah, I'm a poet. Yeah, that's what I find down in here. I find delicious, melancholic train tracks and crows and wonderful chewy desert winds and mournful blues that are just made of actually ecstasy, I find rhapsodic, angelic presences that say things to me that are so priceless that when I come out I have to write them down, It's also part of poetry. Beauty. I find beauty. I find a vision of who this person is. And so I come out with, in a way, my skeleton given back to me. Yeah. I want to append a little codicil also to this, because there are kind of two wings to my most often practiced inner works. One is the ones I do lying down in bed, and that's this one and a few other inner journeys that I do. And the other one is active meditations, dancing, wild ones. Now, particularly dynamic meditation, which is one of the countless gifts that Osho gave the world, is so helpful if I'm pissed off. I've discovered through experimenting that if I'm pissed off, it's much better to just do dynamic meditation rather than to lie down and do self-healing. I can, if I do self-healing when I'm pissed off, I can face it. It just takes a lot longer, and it's somehow a bit more laborious. If I'm pissed off, the best way to not avoid is to just do dynamic meditation, which is a very scientific method with steps, which takes you through waking up energy, catharting very safely on a pillow, and then not ending there, because if you just try to end with catharsis, you will not have integrated that catharsis if you just emerge from it directly. So this method helps you then through different steps to integrate and see and be still with what has happened through your unloading the things that you didn't need. And then it also has celebration in it. So if I ever get to teach this method in a training, which I hope to do, certainly dynamic meditation would be part of that. Because we all carry being pissed off. You know, there's always something to be pissed off about somewhere. And it's healthy, you know, it's part of our life in these semi-animal bodies, is that that's one of our attributes is being pissed off, just like sexuality is an attribute, all kinds of things we have as attributes. So there are times for movement and there are times for stillness. And with this method I've just discovered a way with stillness to take myself very, very deep, and it makes me very happy.
And do you feel that when you've done it for others, what sort of experience have they found it?
Oh yeah, I started to talk about that. So, as I said, everybody's different. So, when I'm working with someone going down inside for any kind of a trance journey, because I also do, you know, past life journeys and something called a healing journey and various other kinds of trance journeys, I'm always seeing how people are different in there than I am, you know, some more different than others. And my job is to completely give them space for that. And then I'm also in the unknown, because I have to just make space for this unknown workings of this person and just steering with what feels right to my belly, because this is one of my wired-in gifts is intuition. So I'm using that intuition to steer with when I'm beside them. That being said, so far everyone I've given it to has had a astonishing to themselves result. So the magic of simply facing a thing that you didn't want to face is incredible. When I see somebody facing something, and I'm just sitting there holding space for them, I'm just giving them courage. I'm in presence. Just to sit, I kind of see it like something with a frame around it. You sit within that frame and you look at the monster and you just look at it. And I'm holding space to make that a safe activity, you know. So when I see someone facing a thing that's really uncomfortable for them, I know they've already done most of the work at this point. This is where it's at. Because what's going to come out of that is going to be some kind of lightness. It just is. And I'll do my best to steer them down even further so that that lightness comes through sure and streaming by itself. You know, that's what these steps are for. So yeah, people have had very strong positive results from it. So my dream with this is to have a retreat, maybe 10 days, where there would be no outside kind of distractions. And we would be in a place which was quite silent. So we didn't hear traffic noises and things, because you need to really get very quiet. And then we would do a lot of explorations of different principles that are involved in this practice. I've got a list of 57 principles that are in it or something. And we would do exercises where we explore those. We would talk about how they are in our lives. And then every day we would also work on this method. And we would do active meditations. We would walk in the woods. We would dance so that we keep the body energy moving. And we would go about it in a really relaxed way so that at the end of the time people could feel grounded in it and, you know, more relaxed with it and feel they had something to take away with them. Because so far, if I just tell someone what it is, or I've written an article about it and I have a kind of a a printout of the list of questions, but it seems that people don't have an easy time to just do it by themselves. First of all, you would need a phone app that had the questions on it, so you could just press a button when you were ready for the next question. Someone suggested that. I'm very adept with, in my inner world, taking different roles, so I can very easily take the role of the questioner and then the experiencer.
Mm-hmm.
I've given myself voice dialogue for many, many years. You know, so in one session I'm asking myself a whole list of questions as many different parts as I go through them. And that's incredibly, you know, normal for me. But I think maybe it's not so normal for me. Yeah, so people don't have such an easy time doing it. Just trying to do it by themselves. It hasn't worked for people. So I really need to teach it to them well. I do have one client, she's a very old meditator, and I'm teaching it to her on Skype, slowly, slowly. We alternate practice sessions with theory sessions, and it's going very, very well. And it's a great thrill for me to transmit this and to see her delight as she experiences it.
So you're offering this to the world?
Yeah, because I must, you know. It really just feels like a big pink something in my body that's, you know, just, I would like to just share this fact that, wow, this is possible. That anywhere you go, you don't have to take anything with you except your hands. You know, and maybe even some people can do it without their hands. I don't know. For me, the hands are important. But everywhere you go, like once I was with my then boyfriend. We got off a plane in Virginia and we got into a shuttle that went to a rental car place. We were just sitting in this kind of big van thing and driving through city traffic. Someone passed right in front of this van thing and it had to come to a screeching halt. And I went flying. My boyfriend was sitting kind of against the wall, but somehow I ended up wedged back behind his body with my head and my shoulders up against the luggage rack, you know, and my legs in the air, and my neck was kind of like that. And it was very shocking, you know, it was like, oh. So as soon as we got the rental car, he drove, I got in beside him. I applied my Orasoma rescue remedy and some esogenic oil, and then I just sat there. I put my hands on, closed my eyes, and just sitting there in the car, I went down through the steps. And as soon as I start with the thing, you know, already it's like, okay, you know, now this is good. You know, this is going to happen. This is good. So on the way and down through the steps, I had to face some minor injuries from my childhood, like when I got hit in the forehead by a swing and I left a little splinter in my forehead, you know, and it was, little things like that came up. Somehow or other, by the end of, I don't know, 45 minutes or so, sitting there and going through these steps, it was fine. And my boyfriend was saying, you know, you're going to have a bruising tomorrow, you'll be black and blue, you'll feel strange. I didn't. I was fine. I was just fine. The shock all came out. You know, I woke up the next morning, I was fine. So it is a kind of medical kit in a boxless box. You know, it's just your hands. And I think I probably made it sound very scary about all this facing, which it is, but it's not only that. It's like when you get to the later questions after you've faced, after you've gone down in the cellar and and the undercellar and the undercellar, and you've gone back to the caveman time. I often end up in caveman time. Caveman time is very good because there were very simple drivers there, you know. And when you find a really simple driver, in a way you're freed because, okay, you know, fuck it, I'm an animal, I'm a caveman. Once you've got there, you're kind of disidentified, and then you get into the lovely part where you're flying.
So are you offering these from home? Are you doing sessions with people? Or are you...
I do a lot of Skype sessions.
Right.
I would like to work more with people, but it's somehow I live in a rather remote place and it doesn't mostly happen. But yeah, I do some local ones. Mostly I just do it on myself.
You want to teach it though? You want to
Yes,
pass it
I
on?
would like to teach it. Yes, because it's just a wonderful little medical kit right there, you know. Emotional, psychological, spiritual medical kit. It's just amazing.
So how can people get in touch with you if they want to?
Facebook. Just friend me on Facebook and send me a message and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
That's simple. Yeah. I wonder, like, well, I'm curious how it would be to teach it to a varied group of people, because the only time I've worked with groups with it was just some very introductory stuff. You know, just some exercises to kind of get started with. So I don't know what it would be like with a bunch of people, but I'm experienced in leading trainings in groups with lots of people, so I feel very confident about it, that it would be something lovely to approach. I'm very much into human design, and I think that through talking with someone and looking at their design, I would have some idea of how easy or not it would be for them to work via steps, via a structure like this. Yeah. I'm just going to look at my list to see if there's anything else, any other elements that I might want to talk about before we finish. Yeah, there is another one. When I'm lying here with my hands on, there's a sense of a circle of energy that happens through my own body. And mysteriously, at the same time, it's not only that I'm self-complete in this circle. In some mysterious way, this circle also allows the angelic forces to get in, which they're already here anyway, and they're always there, but they're coming into play with this, because the level of love that occurs, I can't be responsible for it all by myself. You know, it's coming through. It's like they see us taking a step towards ourselves, and they just come rushing, you know. They see us going inside, and they say, yeah, we're here too.
I can feel it.
You know, so you really have a lot of help when you're doing this by yourself.
Yeah, just as you're speaking, it's like, oh, I can feel it. I'm welling up.
And I suppose I can't speak from the viewpoint of someone who is always living in this awareness of the unity of all things, where we are all just the breathing field. I can't say how this method might feel completely irrelevant for that. But I can say from a level of a poor human being that it's hits the spot. Yeah.
Wonderful. What a wonderful gift to be able to give to the world.
So thank you, Michelle, for being there. It was really helpful that you could helped to draw things out very much, to have your beautiful presence.
Thank you.
Okay.